Means a lot to me that you guys come around a little bit, so I'm going to drop a little bit of knowledge. So first and foremost, the classic, right? It's the Super Bowl. And you saw, if you watched, did anybody watch any of the coverage yesterday at all? See what went on in the water? Well, I was in the Outdoor Expo, and I'm going to be there in a little bit again. And so I didn't get to see a lot of it, but I watched some of the highlights and things last night. But I was fishing the couple of days before over in Nashville with that warm weather leading up, and I'm like, man, it is going to be a special week here, this week here in Knoxville, because did you not feel that 7 to 10 days that we had where it was 70 degrees every day? And it's springtime. Right now, the fish are wanting to spawn, they're wanting to move up, and then the day before, what happens? Mother Nature comes in, dumps a ton of rain, and you can see the water's real muddy right now, and it threw a lot of the guys for a loop, because that cold rain just really shocked the system, and you know, it made it tough. I seen a lot of anglers struggle. So I did a little breakdown before the Classic of what I thought, and I fished here in 2019, and it was earlier, it was colder, and so I kind of know the layout of it, and I predicted for sure that the smallmouth really wouldn't play a big factor, and I thought that the big largemouth in this system, you know, especially in Loudon, would be the major factor. And you look and see what happened yesterday. It was totally the opposite. You know, a lot of guys making a really long run down to Tellico. They're fishing for smallmouth, which is my favorite thing to do. And a lot of them are using their forward-facing sonar. So, you know, I've got Mega Live 2 on my boat, and it is absolutely a game changer. It's taught me so much about fish behavior, and it's taught me a lot about the presentations and the things that I do. That maybe I'm not quite as good as I thought I was as an angler, because you see how many fish absolutely come up there and take a look at your bait and don't bite it. And one of my favorite techniques for sure is a jerk bait, and it's perfect for using with forward-facing sonar, because you know you can actually watch that bait in the water with your forward-facing sonar, but most importantly, you can stop it and have it hover right in front of those fish. So that's why I love to use a jerk bait, you know, for any time of the year, but especially with forward-facing sonar and this time of the year. And you know, if I'm going to go out there today and try to be successful, I'm going to first and foremost look at the conditions. So yesterday, again, first big day after a major change in the water conditions. You know, it got muddy, it got cold, it blew out a lot of the creeks, where when you get that cold water coming in and it's real muddy, it's a shock to the bass's system. They can't just swim to the other side of the lake and find anything where it's going to be clear or anything like that. They got to just kind of hang out where they're at, and they don't like it, so it makes it really hard for it to catch them. So that's why you've seen the most successful anglers yesterday, the leaders, they're finding the clearest water they can right now. They're looking for that clear water where it's a little more stable, and that's what I'd want to be doing too. But see that sun there in the sky right now, and you see the weather forecast, and one of the greatest tools that you have as an angler right now is this right here. Everybody's got a smartphone now, right? I have 1,700 different weather apps on there that I can check the temperature, the rain. You can see when things are coming in. You can check the wind speed, direction. You can check the power generation at the dams, you know, to see how much current there's going to be. It's a great tool to give you a lot of information that can help you with figuring out the patterns and the areas that you should even be fishing. The other thing it's got is you got Google Earth, so you can actually look at satellite imagery of any body of water that you fish, and all these anglers know that and utilize that. But you know, when you've got a day out there on the water, it's so important to look at the current conditions. You know, obviously I'm going to be looking and saying, oh man, the water temperature is this, and you know, right now mine is showing 52 right here. That's a perfect temperature for pre-spawn fishing, and again, it's perfect temperature for fishing a jerk bait and things like that. So I've got a couple of baits on my deck right here. I've got a Strike King Thunder Cricket, a KVD Square Bill, and my favorite jerk bait. And if I'm fishing in conditions like this right here, this dirty water, you want to have baits that displace a lot of water. That's why a square bill is so good. It's got a wide wobble to it. It displaces a lot of water, and you know, bass don't have to see it. So in dirty water like this, they do use their eyesight for sure, and it's important to use, you know, colors that are going to be visible to them. So that's why something like, you know, that bright chartreuse, or we're going to use orange or red, bright colors in dirty water, or dark colors because they silhouette real well and the fish can actually see it quite a bit. But most importantly, the biggest thing that they use, and especially during the winter months and in colder conditions, is the bass use their lateral line to actually see in the water. When I mean by see, they have that lateral line on their body and they can feel everything that moves in the water. So even a little 4-inch plastic worm that's got a straight tail that doesn't really have a lot of action or anything like that, as it moves water, they can actually feel that with their lateral line, and that's actually how they survive and hunt when the water's dirty like this. And the colder the water, the more they use that. So what I like to do is use baits that really help me with those fish being able to find it. So that's where that thunder cricket, bladed jigs like that, they have a ton of vibration. You want to have rattles on your jigs. You want bigger, bulkier baits that make more water displacement, more noise, and that's where it's going to be really good. So in this dirty water right here, I'll be throwing a thunder cricket, a square bill. If you're flipping a jig or something like that, you want a bulky trailer, something that has a lot of movement to it. Like I like a trailer like a rage craw that has big flappers to it, displaces a lot of water. Now, if I'm down in the clear water zones, I want something that they can see from a long ways away and that they can actually follow and find, and that's where a jerkbait really comes in handy, because the most important thing that you can do when you're out there and trying to make a bass react that isn't in a positive feeding mood is make it look like it's an easy meal to them. Make it look like it's something that they can catch. So how many people are Bill Dance fans here? You bet. So Bill is one of my great friends. He's got the longest running television bass fishing show in the history of the world, right? And he's a Tennessee guy. And Bill, when he's there fishing on TV, man, he's always catching them, isn't he? I got the pleasure to fish with him earlier this week again, and I always look forward to that. But when they're really biting, you can throw just about anything you want, because when they're in a feeding mood, man, they'll run a long ways, they'll chase baits, they'll swim 10 feet to eat a spinnerbait. And, that's one of the things that I learned from Bill Nance is like, man, when it's aggressive, you can do whatever. But when they're not, you've got to do things to make those fish react to a bait. So one of the key things is having an erratic presentation with whatever bait it is that you're throwing. You don't cast a plastic worm out there and just reel it back to the boat. You jig it, you shake it, you want to make it look alive, you want to make it look natural. Well, any power bait that I use, that's what I want to do. I want to make it look like it's different than everything else there. And, if a bass is looking at a school of shad, say there's 50 shad in a school, they're always looking for the one that is doing something different. Maybe it's swimming a little sideways, maybe it's wounded, maybe it's injured. That's how nature works, is that, they feed on the weak and the sick. So that's what a jerkbait does, is the whole presentation is all about imitating an injured bait fish. And with forward-facing sonar, I can follow that jerkbait. I can see how it's moving in the water, and more importantly, I can see if bass are following it. So if you've ever fished a jerkbait, one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of people do is they actually move the bait too much. They use the reel to do it. So I never work a jerkbait with the reel itself. I'm always wanting to fish it with slack in the line, and this is really hard to do without a wireless mic. But when you fish a jerkbait, Connor's going to be my help. Spot lock.
Thanks, Connor.
Thanks, Connor. Yeah, there you go. So, and this is a technique that I love. Anytime that I've got bass in that mid-range zone, I know a jerkbait is going to be a good tool. So, first and foremost, we'll make a long cast out there, and when you start to retrieve, you always start with slack in your line. So I want to have a little slack in the line. I want to pop the rod and point it right back at it. I never turn the handle. I never move that bait towards the boat with the reel. I'm always just working the rod, snap it down, point it right back at that bait. You're always throwing slack to it like that, and I'll work it pretty hard, but I'm not moving it very much. What that does is that makes that jerkbait just go back and forth, side to side, because of that. because of that slack in the line. So, you know, if you work it like that, you can see I'm snap it pretty hard. It really makes that bait jump and dart super erratically to the side. And that's what bass are looking for, or you know, out of anything, is that real erratic movement or a change in direction. So anytime I can get my bait to kind of change directions, that's a trigger for these fish that are real inactive. So that's why a jerkbait is so good in a lot of those situations like that, where you're trying to make a fish that's in a really not in an active mood to actually target that bait. So when a bass sees that jerkbait and it comes by them and it's, you know, just darting and dancing in the water like that, they can't help but, you know, go after it and attack it. So that's what's really special about this bait, and I can keep it in those zones. So the next thing is, when you're working that jerkbait, you want to keep it in the strike zone or where the fish are at as long as possible. So just like this, if I was working down this bank right here in front of you, I wouldn't be sitting out here casting up to you. I'm going to be going right down there. I'm going to have that bait going parallel right down a seawall or this riprap here. It's perfect water for that scenario. So that bait is over the top of the fish and in the strike zone for the whole cast. That's the number one thing that I want to do with a jerkbait, is keep it in that particular zone and keep it over the top of the fish as much as possible. I want them to come up for it. So if I can have that jerkbait and it's right there in that particular area, they're going to see it. They'll be able to track it. They'll be able to attack it. And if I'm using some of these other baits, like a square bill, I want to do the same thing. I want to, instead of just casting it out there and retrieving it the whole time, you know, I want to start and stop it. I want to deflect it off a cover, because anytime that I can make this this bait ricochet and change direction, if it's close to a bass, a lot of times you're going to be able to trigger them. So, you know, over the years, I watched a lot of co-anglers in my boat, like dock fishing especially. So, you know, they make a really good cast right down the side of a dock and reel it right next to it, but never touch the dock, right? Or if there's a piece of standing timber out there or a lay down log, to do the same thing. Cast right beside it, get real close to it, but never let your bait touch it. Well, that's a big mistake. Everything that I try to do is I try to make a collision with my bait to help it change direction. So if I got to lay down log or you know, seawall like this, I want that lure to crash into it and change direction. When it does that, a lot of times I'll actually try to even enhance that by turning the handle real fast on the reel and speeding it up right as it's going to come in that area. That's what I love to do that with a spinnerbait, for instance. That's why I think a lot of people have a lot of success with a bait like a square bill, is because it's doing a lot of the work for you. If you've got it up there and you're grinding the bottom, it's constantly deflecting and then it rewrites itself, but it's moving erratically through that whole time, and that's what triggers a lot of these fish into biting. So when you don't see the exact piece of cover, or that, this is a great way to feel yourself along the bottom. And square bills are super good, again, for situations like this right here, where you have you know, riprap banks or rocks and things like that. Rocks, laydowns, wood, perfect for a square bill. And then if I've got just a lot of water that I'm trying to cover and it's dirty like this, that's where a bladed jig is just so effective too. You know, I mean, it imitates a shad or a bluegill real well, and it gives off so much vibration, and that's the kind of baits that I really want to use. So, you know, I just love the opportunity to get out and get on the water and fish, and there's nothing like being, you know, at the BassMaster Classic and you know, going to the expo and that. I'm really looking forward to that. Again, we've got some demo rides and stuff going on. And one thing I'd like to do is maybe take a couple of questions before we head off, because I'm anxious just like you. I'm gonna head over there to the expo, maybe get a biscuit or something on the way. But has anybody got any questions or things they'd like to hear? Right there in the front. Really good question. So he said, hey, when fishing's tough, especially in the wintertime, you know, a lot of people like to finesse fish, fish small baits, you know, maybe tie on a Ned rig or, you know, a tube or something like that to be able to get bit. And finesse fishing is always going to work when it gets cold. You got cold fronts, tough conditions, things like that. He said, though, did you ever try to do anything and go to big glide baits or things like, you know, big baits, try to target big fish like that? And absolutely 100%. So these guys here in this tournament, they're fishing for the 5 biggest ones they can. You know, they're not trying to catch 100, right? But they're trying to catch a 20-pound sack. So if you use a bait that is going to attract big fish, you're absolutely probably upping your odds to catch a big fish. The problem is there's a whole lot less big ones out there than there is small ones, right? But glide baits are something that I've really gotten into and had a lot of fun with. I actually have one tied on right here in the box because I love new techniques. I love trying new things, and baits like this right here just really have a lot of visibility, and they can really be great drawing types. The most valuable thing that I've had this bait do is it shows me where a lot of big fish are at in clear water. I mean, a lot of times they'll just follow it and things like that. But when you get color like this, you can actually get the fish to react to it because, just like I said, it displaces a lot of water. This is the new Strike King Hogfather Jr. And it's a great bait. If I can show you the action, it'd be pretty. It's going to be too dirty, but I mean, they just dart back and forth, and it'll just kind of stay right there. I mean, it right suspended on the surface. Big baits like that are a great way to call up big fish like that. So I actually was able to use one last week and catch a 9-pounder on it. So I mean, you can catch some fish of a lifetime with them. So, but yeah, I've got some great YouTube videos and things out on this particular bait, and it's a great way to do it. Any other questions? Up there, up top. Does color really matter? Absolutely. Why do you think when you go to Bass Pro Shops they got all those different colors in the aisles, right? So let me break down how I choose colors on all of my baits. So if I've got real clear water, you want to be natural. I mean, match the hatch is really important. So if you're fishing a bait down on the bottom, one of the great rules of thumbs, if you don't know what color to use and you're in clear water and you're fishing a bait that's down near the bottom, choose a color that matches the bottom you're fishing. So if you're in rocks that are brown, you want to throw something that matches those rocks. If you're in milfoil or hydrilla vegetation that's green, watermelon green, colors that are that, because everything in nature is like a chameleon. If it's a crawdad or a bluegill, they're built to blend in with their surroundings. So if you're fishing something that's on a sandy bottom, they're going to be everything live, whether it's a little minnow or a little crawfish, it's going to be the same color as that bottom around it, and that's very natural. Now the exact opposite is when you got dirty water like this. That's when I want to pick colors that are brighter. And especially if I'm off fishing a spinnerbait or a thunder cricket, you can see I got a chartreuse and white one on, or powder blue chartreuse squarebill. If that bait is up off the bottom, I want it as bright and as visible as possible. And the most visible colors are pearl white, chartreuse, and orange. Those are great dirty water colors. The other one is black. Black, purple, dark colors because they silhouette real well. So in clear water, go natural. In dirty water, go bright and as visible as possible. Okay? Really good question. Right up here up front.
Nice.
I'm going to catch that trick. Yeah, we are not going to leave trash in this river for sure. We've got a few more. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Okay, if I've only got 3 rods to throw, what am I going to use? Well, the fortunate thing for me is I've got 30 in the box right here. Okay, and they're just tools, right? Every lure, people ask me that all the time too, is like, hey man, what's your favorite lure? Well, I truly don't have a favorite. I have a lot of lures that I like, for sure, but I don't have a favorite. What I want to do is I want to use the one that is the most efficient. We're going to get this t-shirt here a second. Connor, get that shirt. He's going to toss it up there. Somebody's going to get a wet nitro t-shirt. There you go. But now I lost my whole train of thought. What was I even talking about? Oh, favorite baits. I don't have a favorite. I mean, if you look at my boat, I've got thousands of lures in here. But what I want to do is I want to choose the bait that is the most efficient for the depth zone and the cover that I'm faced with at that current time. That's why I have all those rods out on the deck. Because, for one area that I'm going down, that square bill may be the perfect bait for that depth zone and the cover. And then I'm going to come up to a big fallen tree, and I want to flip a jig right into the middle of it. And then I look with my Mega Live off to the side, and I see a fish suspended out there. I'm going to throw a jerk bait out there to that. So that's why we have them all. I mean, they're just like a golfer has a lot of clubs in their bag. You have to have a lot of rods. So that's what I tell my wife too. You got to have a lot of fishing rods. And if she says anything to you about how many fishing rods you have, just ask her how many pairs of shoes she has in the closet. Yeah, boo. Yeah, she said boo. Right now, I mean, and the other thing, if you want to talk your wife into a new rod and reel, it's the best sale of the year. It's the Spring Classic. Right now, we got the expo going on, the Bass Pro Shop booth. They've got a ton of deals and sales going on, so it's a great time to get a new fishing rod. I seen a lot of people walking around yesterday with all these buckets loaded with baits and carrying fishing rods, and it's a pretty great week to be a bass fishing fan here in Knoxville. So. One more question, and then we'll let everybody run off and get some breakfast. I'm going to take a run down the river and try to snatch a few. Right up there, up top.
Where's your favorite place in Tennessee if you could fish smallmouth only?
If I could fish smallmouth only, my favorite place in Tennessee, Dale Hollow. So it's a great fishery. I love the Tennessee River. Over my career, all up and down the Tennessee River has been really good to me. I haven't won on this lake. And I can tell you, this next week, that's what I'm doing. I've got a new television show we started, a little over a year ago called the Vandam Experience, and I'm filming with Ott Defo. Anybody know Ott Defo?
Yeah.
He won the Classic here at 19 when I was at, and we're not going to fish here because we figure these guys probably have this pretty well picked over by then. But we're going to go someplace in Tennessee and film a Vandam Experience, and boy, Dale Hollow is just a special place for me. So I love this whole area. I think that Knoxville is arguably one of the best venues there could possibly ask for a BassMaster Classic. I told Chase Anderson this morning, I said, I think you should have it here every year. Make it just like the Masters, have this the destination for the Classic. It's a great playing field, great fishery, and it's really showing out. So I look forward to it. So hopefully you all are going to head over to the expo. We'll see you there. I'll be there signing autographs and hanging out for the day. And thanks for taking a few minutes. And hopefully some of the those things that I taught you this morning will be able to apply, and you're going to be able to catch some more fish on the water. So have a great day. It's the BassMaster Classic. Let's go.